Book of Joshua chapter 1, I'm going to read there verse 1. It said, after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, it came to pass that the Lord spoke to Joshua the son of Nun, Moses' assistant, saying, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now therefore arise, go over this Jordan, you and all this people, to the land which I am giving to them, the children of Israel. Moses was a kaumatua, and he had to be in charge of over 3 million people. That's quite a number. It's not easy to take on a mandate. That would mean that you've got to bring a whole generation out. Moses to the children of Israel would be no different to a leader that would set what is called a precedent. If you were to trace the ancestry of Israel, Moses would be high on the list. And his job as a leader was to bring the people out. We're at a similar intersection today. And in actual fact, we're at an identical scenario. It's time for a generation to come forth. It's time for a people to go over the other side. It says in verse 3, every place the sole of your foot will tread upon, I have given, as I said to Moses, from the wilderness and this Lebanon as far as the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites, and to the great sea toward the going down of the sun, shall be your territory. And dig this, no man shall be able to stand before you. I like that. Whew. And all the days of your life, as I was with Moses, so shall I be with you. So we have here the end of one leadership, which was the conclusion of a Moses, and then there was the introduction of a Joshua. And Iwatua, God Almighty, the God of Abraham, he said to the children of Israel, he said, every place. Say every place. Now this is important that you understand this. It said, every place the sole of your foot treads. So your foot had to tread. He said, every place the sole of your foot shall tread, that have I given. Say, that have I given. It's going to make sense, because what was actually taking place here, for Israel, their affiliation is with the soil, the whenua. And so for them, their identification is with the whenua. And Iwatua said, every place the sole of your foot treads, I've given it to you. So what does that mean? That our identification is not unlike that of Israel, because our identification is tied to the soil. You got to capture this today. This is going all over the world. And it's important we understand that. Every place the sole of your foot treads, our identification is tied to the whenua. Now we use the term in Māori, we understand this tangata whenua. We hear this all the time. Let me tell you the biblical worldview of tangata whenua. Iwatua takes the whenua. He takes a portion of it. Then what he does is he breathes into it. Out of that we got man, which was Adam. So what do you get? You get tangata, the man, and you get the whenua. So therefore you get tangata whenua. Say tangata whenua. Say Kihei Māori ora. Woohoo! If I do the haka, don't be surprised. And okay, so that's Iwatua's worldview. We were all tied to the soil at the beginning. So should it be a surprise, we're still tied to the soil today. Hear what I'm saying. We're tied to the soil today. Tuhoi are tied to the soil of Tuhoi. Ngāpui are tied to the soil of Ngāpui. Ngāi Tahu are tied to the soil of Ngāi Tahu, Kaitahu now. Why are we tiny is tied to the soil. Now I can say this in physics. There's an intrinsic connection between you and the actual soil. We know this in physics. There's actually a connection between us as people and the soil. Why? Because we came from the soil. To the children of Israel, their whole identification would be soil-based. The same is actually true today. If you know, with Israel, of course, they take great pride in their Jerusalem, and they have to protect it with everything they've got. And at times they're outnumbered. At times there are several countries that come against them, but you know what's really amazing at this time? When they get into a crisis and they start to say to themselves, what are we going to do? The nations are coming against us. We see this played out. Just watch the news. What they immediately do is they go to the promises that God made through Moses, what he made through his prophets, what he made through the Poropitis. They go to the prophets and they look it up and they say, Iwatua, you said. Because what ties us to Iwatua is promises. Very powerful if you can understand this sort of thing. There's a resurgence that's happening worldwide. We're seeing a fixation with the Aboriginal. He wants redress. He wants recognition. He wants compensation. We're seeing this in Hawaii when the Hawaiian people are rising up. Why? Because they want compensation. They want redress. Why do the peoples of Ngāpui, what are the peoples throughout Aotearoa? Why did we have a fixation with the land? Because we came from the soil. Our identification is in the soil. Our mana is in the soil. Who we are is in the soil. We are tied to it, but that was a biblical precedent. Iwatua made it that peoples would be tied to their very whenua. You trace the Māori people, you'll see in a time of crucible difficulty, when our land was being stolen, we needed a Māngai authority. We needed a voice, and the ministry of the Purupiti would be raised up. The Māori prophet would rise up to be a spokesman for Iwatua. So we needed that, because why? In a time of crucible, that's what you need is a voice. Say a voice. This is very important that we actually understand these points. I'm taking us, I'd said online that I would address Indigenouses worldwide. Why is it that the Red Indian in America has a fixation at the moment to want compensation? Because he is tied to the soil. Can you understand what I'm trying to say? So this is a biblical precedent. The Paipera Tapu is the greatest authority on tangata whenua, the greatest authority on bringing the people back into a compensation, bringing the people back where they can be raised up to have their identity, to have their recognition of who they are as a people. And so for Israel, their whole focus is on the soil. Because this is what really the soil is about, if I may say. It's not just whenua. It's actually prestige. What's tied to that soil is ownership. What is tied to that soil is your prestige. That's why it's been happening. That's why we see this resurgence taking place with the Aboriginal. But you know the greatest commodity, the greatest asset you need as a people, whether you're Aboriginal, whether you're Hawaiian, whether you're Red Indian, whether you're Māori, you know what's needed? This. Waha. Say waha. Waha. Say waha nui. Waha nui. That's what it is. Open your waha iho. Turn to somebody and say, open your waha iho. Go on. That's what's needed. Somebody has to speak out. You know, when the black community in America, they got into, you know how they were being treated as a second-class people. They needed somebody that says, I've been to the mountaintop. I've looked over. They needed somebody that had to come in and say, I've had a dream. You know what I'm saying. The narrative, obviously, is Martin Luther. That was necessary. Why? Because you need a waha. Say a waha. Say waha nui. Why do you need a waha? Because a waha is needed. Now, God gives you that mouthpiece so that you can use it. Now, I'll tell you this. One of the cabinet members, going back in one of the elections, he used to use some of my real estate there when we were at one area, and I walked in one day and he said this, and I won't mention his name but he said this to me, and I said, my people, and he said, why do you call them my people? He said, and he was saying, why do you call yourselves my people? Why do you use that term? And I said, listen here. I said, if we didn't fight you, you would have put us on the reserves. And then we would have found ourselves being treated no different to the Red Indians and to the Aboriginals. But I said, we got mana. And I said, and then that shut them up. And I said, te hei Māori ora. You want to fight this married boy? You better be good. Why? Because I'm a waha nui. Say waha nui. So tangata whenua is actually a biblical precedent. It's from the Paipera Tapu. It is tangata, the people, the whenua. Why? Because we are connected. We are connected genetically. We are connected in physics. There's an intrinsic connection there. So we can't help it. We just find ourselves wanting to get back this, wanting to get back that, wanting to get back this. Well, it's part of us. I remember a tangi that I had to take in one of my fires had passed away. She was my intercessor from Ngāpui. Mo te tau. I didn't even know there was a place. You don't want to drive a good car down there because it's all gravel. They will ruin your car. So we end up at Mo te tau, and what's happening is that we're at this tangi. This literally happened. And during the service part, why it is powerful, singing to the Lord. During the service part, it was like the whole lid of the marae just, the whole roof just lifted off. And we went right into another realm and you could feel it. A very proper way in which I'd send her off. Iwatua would turn up in the service in a powerful way. She was the type that you could ring at 2 a.m. in the morning, she'd still answer the phone. Amazing. She was that type. She was that type that was always there. I could send her to look out, she'd do that. She was a real missionary in her own right. And isn't it right that Iwata should send her off with such power? This is what was happening whilst we were doing the service. The ones at the Urupā that were actually, doing the burial, they looked over at the marae, and this is what they said. They said this at the end. In their kōrero, they made this statement. They said when they looked over at the marae, it looked like it was on fire. So they rushed back. Now where they were, they said they could hear the sound. It was impossible for them to hear the sound because where the marae was and where they were, there was a great distance. But they said they could hear it. And they came rushing over, and this is their own report. They came rushing over, and as they began to walk into the marae, they got pushed back because there was such a force in the marae. And they were saying this. I look at things like that, and I think Iwatua is about to do something that's going to be unprecedented amidst the Māori people that we've never ever seen. That there is, yes, there's going to be a restoration, but can I tell you this? We may get a check from Crown, doesn't mean we're going to get totally restored. Do you know what I mean? Because you can't heal the mumai just with a compensation of a check. The mumai needs healing. The wound needs healing. Sometimes it has to be deeper. I'm coming to Parihaka one time. I'm coming to these different places, and I'm going to be going there in the strength of Iwatua. Because there's more to it. There's more to it. Now, the beauty about Iwatua today, he wants to give a land of restoration and a real estate that he wants to take possession. It's not in the eastern lands. The real estate that he wants to take possession is your own heart. He wants to take possession of who you are as an individual. He wants to take possession of your psyche. He wants to take a possession of who you are as an individual. That's what he wants as the land. He wants to take possession. One time we did this, it was in Otara there. I was in a meeting there, and I'll just describe it. It was what we call a prophetic drama. And I started walking around as if I was walking around Aotearoa, New Zealand. And I said, Iwatua, come to Ngāi Tahu. And then I would walk it around. Then I said, and I started walking these different ways. And then I said to my man, and I said, do a pohari to him. And I looked at my whai and I said, do a karanga, te ihu karaiti. And she started doing it. And then my men started going, they started doing the haka. We were doing it to ihu karaiti. It was powerful. But this is what Iwatua said to me. He said, son, he said, I want to take possession of the soil of your heart. And then he said this. And then he said, through you, I'll take possession of Ngāi Tahu. He said, then through you, I'll take possession of Ngāpui. But he said, through you. But he said, son, I've got to get the real estate of your heart first. Because he said, if I can get that real estate, he said, then that's going to be through you. The force that Iwatua wants to use today is going to be every individual person. So the reason why we see this fixation worldwide, where Indigenous peoples worldwide have this fixation where they want redress, where they want compensation. Why they're like that is because they can't help themselves. Because they're tied to the soil. Do you understand what I'm trying to say here? We are tied to the soil. So we can't get away from it. It's just who we are. But I will say this. Once we get the check, do we really have a place now to protest? They paid us out. No, we don't. So, Ngāpu, if you receive that check, then don't put your placards up. You know what I'm saying? I noticed Tūhoi's gone very quiet since they got their check.
Very quiet.
Yeah, very quiet. You know, it's like, check it out. Hey. I woke up this morning and I said to the missus, I said, honey, have you noticed that Tūhoi has been very quiet since they got their check? Yeah, because you've got to see. Once you take the check, you haven't got a right. Because you got your compensation. But can I say to all people groups today, Iwatua wants to bring you more than just a check. He wants to bring a restoration. He can heal the mumai. You hear what I'm trying to say? He can heal that. He can heal that wound. He can heal all those sort of things. He can bring restoration in every department and all these sort of things. And that's why we're seeing a resurgence amidst the Māori people. Now, this is what's happening, not just the Māori people. The pendulum of favour is suddenly swinging, and it's going toward the Hawaiian people. I'm coming. Just pay for my fare. The Aboriginal, I am coming in 2 weeks. You see me over there. And why? Because the pendulum is starting to swing. Can you see what I'm saying? It's swinging toward them. Now, what does that mean? We know what's happening. Multi-providers are finding that they're not getting a lot from the government anymore. We know the Safe Fire. Priscilla, let's be straight about this. We know that. It's going to happen on an increase. We were talking about this last night in our meeting over there. We had a discussion about it. And IHC, fire, even they're finding they're losing the resources, and it's largely because of this. Government doesn't have what it used to have. So it's no longer in a position where the Treasury is able to pay out. Okay, what does that mean? We're going to have to be resourceful. Fire. We're going to have to look at other ways. We're going to have to be a lot more innovative. Let me say this. The entrepreneurial spirit is in our DNA. We know how to trade. We were trading before and we're going to trade again. Are you a little bit alive out there? Think about what I'm saying. We have to think outside of the box. Why? Because it's like this. Some trust in chariots, some in horses, but we will remember the name of the Lord our God. We've got to put our trust now in a different way. We've got to think differently. Now's the time. Because there's going to be changes throughout this country. The same is going to be all over the world. But that's okay. Because in those times, because the pendulum is swinging, and it's swinging, and it's now swinging towards the Hawaiian people. The pendulum is swinging. It's now swinging toward the Aboriginal people. The pendulum is swinging. It's now swinging toward the Māori people. Can you see what I'm saying? There's hope. Change. When I get back from Australia and I'm over there in a couple of weeks' time ministering, I have to look after the Mozzies. I want to hit Ngāpui. Hey, we might all go, eh? What do you reckon? We'll all hop in the waka and we'll go, oh. Because Iwatu has spoken to me. There's a revival footprint in Ngāpui that has to be revisited. It has to be. I will say a couple of things. Not everything's going to be easy. Ngāpui's going to find itself. There's going to be riots in Ngāpui. The tinder box is already there. It's just going to take a little bit to ignite it. I understand that. Don't worry, I'll be right in the middle of it. I'll be right smack in the middle of it. Because that's what you got to do. I don't run away from the roar of the lion, I run to it. That's what leadership is all about. So what do we need is this pendulum is swinging. We need good leadership. We don't just need Māori leadership, because some of them are humbug too. And don't look at me funny, because you know what I'm saying. Because some of them were your cousins. Some of them were your whānau. You know what I'm saying? Well, some of them might have even been some of you. That's all right. We'll change that score. You know what I'm trying to say. We're in a good hour. The pendulum is swinging. That's why in the third world countries, they're leading the way. You know, Western churches get up there and they boast because they got 20,000 in their big churches. That's so small. In the third world countries, you've got over 1 million in Korea. In the third world countries, you've got hundreds of thousands. I mean, you know what I mean? What is that? What is that? That's because the pendulum has swung toward those peoples. Why? Because when you've been a minority, when you've had your rights taken away from you, when you've been deprived, when they've stolen your language, When all these are happening, what happens is it's at that time that you can look up. Why? Because your redemption cometh from above. It's at that point that Iwatua comes in, he brings a pendulum swing, and we start to get a move. But the beauty about it, it's going to be all in him. Kia kaha, nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, kia ora koutou katoa. Favour is not just transferred genetically, it's also transferred by association. When we partner with a ministry, we actually partner with the ethos that that ministry represents. You'll notice by my messages, they're not just standard messages. I'm actually speaking into what is called the now dimension. To partner with my ministry means that you're going to partner with the last days workings of God in this hour. I'm not here to bring a continuum of the status quo. I'm here to represent what God wants to do in this particular hour. Take it a step further, not just listen to my messages, but also partner with me. You'll become part of a mentoring system. And that has to do with a mentor and a mentee. The beauty about in that mentoring system, you gain favour, you gain understanding, revelation, all these different things. God bless you. Join me.
Jesus was wounded and bruised. He struck the ground, and by his stripes I'm healed. Poa te whenua, poa te whenua. Jesus was wounded and bruised. He struck the ground, and by his stripes I'm healed. Poa te whenua, poa te whenua. Jesus was wounded and bruised. He struck the ground, and by his stripes I'm